Oftentimes, men and their loved ones struggle with where to obtain good information about their prostate health. Navigating the sea of information can certainly be a challenge. Today, we'll be chatting with Wendy Poage, President of the Prostate Conditions Education Council, to address this issue, but also share a bit more about the organization, which is the nation's leading resource for information on prostate health. So the big question is this: how can men and those who care for them better educate themselves regarding prostate health, the conditions that affect the prostate, and the latest technology in managing these conditions? That is the question, and this podcast will provide the answers. On a weekly basis, we will be chatting with experts, innovators, and leaders in the field of urology, sharing useful information with the general public to improve their lives and increase their overall health. My name is Dr. Garrett Pullman, and welcome to the Prostate Health Podcast. Prostate Health Podcast is for informational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast should be construed as medical advice. By listening to the podcast, no physician-patient relationship has been formed. For more information and counseling, you must contact your personal physician or urologist with questions about your unique situation. I am excited to welcome Wendy Poage to the Prostate Health Podcast today. Wendy has been the president of the Prostate Conditions Education Council since 1998. She also served as the Administrator of Urologic Oncology at the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center for over 20 years. I've gotten to know Wendy over the years during my urology residency training at the University of Colorado, but also more recently as we had a chance to connect while we were both serving as speakers at this year's International Prostate Cancer Update meeting in Beaver Creek, Colorado. Wendy's vast experience with prostate cancer includes leadership positions in renowned educational institutions, hospitals, nonprofits, and private practice settings, including but not limited to Vice President of the National Alliance for State Prostate Cancer Coalitions and the Prostate Cancer Roundtable. Her unique expertise in areas of interest include bridging the gap between patients, research, and their medical providers. She is definitely a highly sought-after international consultant and resource. Wendy, welcome to the Prostate Health Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, the Prostate Conditions Education Council, or PCEC, has been an amazing resource for men and those that care for them over the years for their prostate health. Maybe for some of our listeners not familiar yet with the organization, could you share a bit about what is the Prostate Conditions Education Council?
I would be happy to. Other than a really long name, we call it PCEC for short. PCEC has been around for about 30 years, just over actually, and we're a nonprofit organization that's really dedicated to saving and improving the lives of men with prostate cancer and their loved ones. Our organization, I think, is really special because it was founded by a group of medical professionals, primarily urologists, who were really tired of seeing every case of prostate cancer diagnosed as advanced disease back in the late 80s and early 90s. So they came together and really dedicated this organization to making sure that we could make that change and then continue to improve the health of men as more advancements came out.
Well, it's certainly been a great organization to have now. Now, the Prostate Conditions Education Council is founder and coordinator of the National Prostate Cancer Awareness Week program. Now, one of my first exposures to PCEC was getting to help out with Prostate Cancer Awareness Week, including the prostate health screenings offered. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the Prostate Cancer Awareness Week program?
That's so funny, Garrett. That was my first exposure to PCEC as well. I was in my young 20s and volunteered for a Prostate Cancer Awareness Week program. Little did I know then that I would be spending most of my life working there. So I'm really dedicated to it. And funny that we've had that same experience. And we also very much appreciated all the volunteer work you did back then. But yeah, so Prostate Cancer Awareness Week was really started at the beginning of the organization, and it's actually run as a clinical trial. So there's a protocol, and we keep serum in a biorepository, and it was really intended at the very beginning to help make sure that we could catch men's prostate cancer as early as possible and really hope to improve their outcomes. And over the years, we've done exactly that. And that week has continued to grow. So Prostate Cancer Awareness Week was always the third week of September. It still is. But because of the success of all the programming, the week very quickly grew into a month. So now we have September as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And then, of course, we do our programming year round now. So we have activities all the time, and they're just never ending, which is really great.
So what are some of the various tests offered through this program?
Really great question. So obviously, we test with PSA, or prostate-specific antigen, which is really specific to the prostate. And that's the main test that we offer. But about 10 or 15 years ago, we got a lot of feedback from people. So we had developed kind of the largest men's health event in the world, and we were only checking for prostate cancer. And they really pushed us to widen that gap and make sure we were testing for a lot of the other men's health conditions as well. So now we offer what we call a men's health panel. And that panel includes things like testosterone checks, a lipid panel, even a glucose for diabetes, and a variety of different tests that really just help give a picture of the man's entire health and not just his prostate.
And is this a free resource for men, or do they have to pay, to participate with this?
That's a great question. So the way our program is set up is it's free for almost everyone. Every once in a while, there's one screening location who will charge a couple of dollars to help pay their expenses. But anything that comes directly from PCEC is free for men. And we make sure that happens because we don't want cost to be a barrier for anybody taking care of their health. We always say it's hard enough to get men to really take charge of their health. So we try to take away all the excuses that might be out there.
Well, it's just such a great resource for men and their loved ones to have. So, and I'm sure just from all of our listeners hearing this episode, we'll have a lot of people, interested. So now, how might our listeners go about finding one of the prostate health screening sites across the U.S.?
That's a great question. So this year is a little bit different than most years, obviously, because we're in the midst of a pandemic. So historically, all of our screening sites are located in hospitals or doctors' offices and overseen by medical professionals. But this year, we've had to be a little more creative in our programming because those all couldn't happen. So while we have a few live events across the country, we were able to set up a couple of unique programs where men could contact us, kind of go through our process, and then we have two options for them. They can either go to LabCorp, and there's thousands of them across the United States, or if for some reason that's a barrier, we even have access to finger prick tests where they could do a PSA in their home. So it's really easy to find us. The best thing for them to do is to go to our webpage, which is prostateevents.org. And they can see all of the educational programming that we have specifically through this fall. And then scroll down, and they can also just send an inquiry to us for a free screening program, and we'll just give them a call back. But they can also call us, email us, whatever's best for them.
Well, and we'll make sure to get a link to the website in our show notes too, for everybody that's listening and driving and can't stop to write that down. So
that would be great. Thank you.
So the Prostate Conditions Education Council has really been a national leader in increasing awareness and education on prostate cancer, current treatments, and men's health issues. What are some of the various ongoing education and awareness campaigns that the PCEC has championed?
We have done so many. We've had such a great history in the past 30 years. Some of my favorites are we worked with we worked with most of the NFL football teams to raise awareness about prostate cancer in general. We actually had started the first 5K run, walk, race series for prostate cancer around the nation back about 15 years ago. And we've worked with celebrities like Colin Powell and Tony Romo, and really worked to just really raise awareness of prostate cancer when that was needed. But I would say now our most impactful programs are the ones that we engage with women on. So we do a lot of caregivers in this together type of campaigns. And the women have really helped encourage men to not only take care of their overall health, but also their prostate health. In fact, we ask a question of men who come into our programs, and the question is, why did you come in? And one of the options is, my wife made me. And over 50% of the guys who participate select that as their answer. And we do a lot of jokes in our office about, and that's only the 50% that admit it. We suspect there's more that haven't admitted to that yet.
I think that's, I'm sure there's a lot of them getting dropped off and pushed out of the car to come out to it. So
it is. There are. Yeah, it's a great group. But yeah, we really do appreciate the women. And another campaign that we've been working really hard on is prostate cancer markers. This is really new in the prostate cancer field, both for physicians several years ago and also for patients. So we put a lot of time and energy into educating everybody in the field around how these prostate markers might help in the decision making. And of course, we're really passionate about genetic testing because now there's treatment options that might be available for men who have a genetic mutation in more advanced disease. But we also know we might treat their cancer differently if we know that they have a genetic predisposition very early on. So that's one of our newer campaigns that we're really actively working on.
And I really like that website too. And we'll put a link to that in our show notes as well. And going back to Dr. Crawford's episode, when we were talking about some of the prostate cancer markers, I think that website does a really good job of kind of making sense of the different markers, putting them into kind of different groupings or buckets, so to speak. And it really kind of, even for the general public to kind of, figure out how these markers can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a patient-facing website called prostatemarkers.org, and I'll send that over to you as well, Garrett. But it really just lays out a depiction of where the markers fit in the different areas. And also they can click on it and figure out what it means and how to order it really simply. So we'll share that with you as well.
Yeah, that's an awesome resource. Now, I often, will add a bit of caution to my own patients as they do their own research about their prostate conditions. Now, what wisdom would you leave for our listeners about how they can go about getting good information about their prostate health?
That's a great question. It's a really hard question too, because a lot of times doctors specifically will tell patients, don't Google this, don't go to Dr. Google, but we all can't help it and we do it anyway. So we always try to coach patients and their family members, honestly, that it's okay to search around, but recognize that it's really hard to find great resources. And especially in prostate cancer, because there's so many different nuances to the disease. Not every treatment option might be right for certain people. And it really depends on a person's personal health history and a lot of other concerns. So we always coach people to talk about, if you're searching the internet and looking for information, do so with the filter that you're going to bring questions into your physician to talk about it. So rather than trying to plan your own treatment and assume that you should be getting certain tests done or certain procedures, really just start a list of things that you want to discuss with your physician. And the other way that we coach people to really, if they really want to gain knowledge, is we always encourage a second opinion. And for us, a second opinion is just really a confirmatory visit where you might get a little bit of different information, but more often than not, it really gives the patients and their families confidence in the decision that they've made for either a treatment or a pathway, or even just choosing a physician. So a second opinion is really important as well.
I think that's all great advice. So how might our listeners best utilize and stay up to speed with all the resources the PCEC has to offer?
Well, we'd love to have visitors. We love patient navigation. So we're always happy to talk to anybody about their journey. And a lot of times we'll track them over time. So as they're especially when they're first diagnosed, but also when they're having transitions in their care, we love to talk with them and help provide advice and input and resources. So really just staying in contact with us, and our team is always happy to do that. But visiting our website and visiting some of what we call our micro websites that have some different tools based on where you're at in your journey is always super easy. And we try to keep those current with our founding physicians guiding us. They're really key opinion leaders in this field. So they make sure that we're cutting edge and innovative and making sure that all of the information's on target. So hopefully we can continue to help people on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, definitely. And I've enjoyed just, following PCEC on Facebook, and it's really kind of, keeps you up to speed, especially with the upcoming webinars that are available. And, I think it's just, you've done a great job in doing that. So as we wrap up the podcast, after chatting with you today, it's easy to recognize now why the Prostate Conditions Education Council is the nation's leading resource for information on prostate health. It really is remarkable to see how the organization continues to help prevent the negative impact of disease, challenge men to take charge of their health, and educating men and their families. So any final thoughts today for our listeners?
I think my final thought would be, this is our pause month. So September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. There's no time like the present to really step up and take care of your health. And I know a lot of people have really struggled with COVID and fear of going out or going into the doctor's office. But I think it's really important to remember that for prostate cancer specifically, we're expecting 23,000 delayed diagnoses of prostate cancer. And that could mean really difficult outcomes in a more difficult path where patients may not have access to all of the treatment options they might have. So even in this time of a pandemic, we are really encouraging men to take advantage of some of the free prostate cancer screenings that we're offering right now and really take charge of their health.
That's great. And so it's really been a pleasure having you join us today on the Prostate Health Podcast, Wendy. And you've really delivered up some significant value for our listeners, including the various programs and resources that PCEC has to offer. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you again for listening to the Prostate Health Podcast. We would love to have you join our podcast Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/Prostate Health Podcast, or just use the Facebook group search function and search for the Prostate Health Podcast and ask to join. We'll see you at the next episode.